Good morning and welcome to an election morning on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. That's 855-752-4842. Good morning, Calvin. It's here.
It's here. We made it.
Yeah, it's been a long slog, as they say, and it's here. But my special guest, Sandy Williams, a host, is
who is this guy?
is here today. As we've said, he's going to join us every day this week as we talk about just where we are. I'm happy to have him. I'm glad he accepted.
Elections are something that's changed. It used to be you'd have the election on Tuesday, and Tuesday night about 9:30, you knew who won, and the speed of the news traveled at the same speed as light, right? And now what we've got is an explosion that happens. We see the cloud, but we don't hear the noise for potentially days. It's going to be. I was listening this morning to a discussion of how the AP calls these, and depending on how things go in some of the close states, it might be next Tuesday. Last election it took until I think the Friday or Saturday following.
Sandy, the upheaval that will happen if that's the case. I think even worse this time around than it was the last time. The upheaval would just be, I don't know if the American people can stand it.
Well, there's been so much discussion and evidence showing how valid the voting process is, how sanctified it is, how carefully handled it is, how not subject to fraud it is, that those are the facts. But we have a whole bunch of people out there willing to believe and believing that it's not the case, that there's underlying fraud, that there's some kind of fix in spite of the fact that there are no facts to support it. So if we have a long delay, it just gives much longer time for all of that to stew, what is happening now, what is physically happening in this count.
So before we get into all of that, we've got some really sad news about a young man who you and I both knew and who was a great state representative for the city of Milwaukee for many years, and he wound up then becoming an alderman, and a guy who I used to have on the radio show when we were in Milwaukee over on Brady Street, and he filled in for me a few times. Jonathan Brostow, very smart, family guy, 4 young children, really committed to the community, and he was more than a politician. He was a guy who heard his constituents, who spoke for his constituents, who fought for his constituents, and he fought for justice and action, Sandy. That's who Jonathan Brostow was.
Yeah, he was a wonderful person, and I know him and his family, and Jonathan superficially was this person, this dynamo who was doing great things, but privately throughout a life he struggled with mental illness, with depression, and unfortunately the mental illness, depression won that battle, and he took his life. Suicide's a terribly sad thing, and it brings, I think, kind of levels out all of this stuff about elections and campaigns, and when we realize the importance of really important things, which is family and the healthiness of the people we love. But I hope that people understand that the fight that Jonathan Brostow had was a terribly difficult one, and mental illness is a terribly difficult thing. I was involved with another, very close to a young man who had the same outcome. Charles Kubley, and his family has devoted itself to working with on the issue of depression, young adult depression, and suicide. And we should all be aware of the fact that this is an illness, and it's something that everyone needs to be aware of and self-aware of. People out there who are feeling the pangs of depression need to address it, need to understand they aren't alone. And this is another reason why our healthcare system needs to make sure that it addresses mental illness as well as physical illness.
Well, Sandy, I've been dealing with for 25 years, the better part of a quarter of a century, with the mental illness of my son. And it doesn't go away. They can give him medication, and my son was court ordered medicated, and they changed the laws in the middle of the stream and said, well, it's not legal to court order people to be medicated, and their constitutional rights are being interrupted. And I remember the fight that I had with Milwaukee County Health and Human Services to try to save my own son's life. And I was saying to them, how can he be court-ordered medicated for all these years, and now all of a sudden you've changed this, and now you are saying that people who are mentally ill have a constitutional right to say, no, I don't want to take medication. How can it be both?
Well, it's all, the whole area is a very complex area, and without getting into that kind of an issue, I think that what people do need to understand is that depression is a pervasive mental illness issue, and people who are feeling the pangs of it or might be suspicious that they're suffering from it need to reach out and understand that there is help out there, and
not enough,
not enough, and it's not always a successful fight. Jonathan was a very successful young man in every kind of superficial way, and he was very successful in this long fight. Lived to be, I believe, 41. He was 41, but and that was probably a difficult journey for him, but he did wonderful things.
No question. But I'd also say this before we move on is, Sandy, this life is not easy for all, and life is a difficult journey, and those who, none of us get away, no matter who we are, without being tried in this life. And so some of us are able to deal with the trials and tribulations of life better than others. Well, but all of us are going to be tried.
Yeah, I mean, and also I think this is just a time for us to pause maybe and realize that much of what people are like talking about in the election or vilifying in the election, gender issues, all these things touch families, many families, and they're highly personal. Okay. And I'm leaping from this issue of mental illness to other things, but
they're interconnected.
But they're interconnected in the way that people need to be empathetic, and people should understand and shouldn't and need to understand that this touches families, whether they're Republicans or Democrats,
rich or poor,
whether they're rich or poor, whether they're Christian or Muslim or whatever,
black or white, yeah.
And so there's a unifying aspect to the problems we have of living, right? The problems that we face as families, as extended families, as human beings, and in a way it should be a unifying force instead of a divisive force. And I'm terribly angry with those in the political process who want to make this and these things divisive problems.
I think, Sandy, that's very well said, and needed to be said, because if there is one thing that should be uniting all of us, it's that common denominator of
humanity.
We're the same. Yes.
Yeah, this is all about the humanity, and to vilify portions of it you know, whether if I'm a Democrat, I'm not evil, okay? Even though, well, well,
the
I
Dickens, you say.
well, I know, but I mean, in a rally last night, in his last rally, the candidate Trump said he wasn't running against Kamala. He was running against the Democrat that and their evil people. And you know, I fear that we've made politics into a crusade that is designed to divide humanity, to divide the humanity in all of us, and to cause us to find the we and the they. And you know, it's one thing if we and they are simply in a different party, but if they become an evil enemy, and if we've created a religious crusade of the sort that is the kind we throw our body into and our life willing to give our blood for, we've made a terrible mistake.
You know, Sandy, the 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 reality of it is somebody is making this happen. We as individuals and as voters, we aren't sitting back concocting these kinds of thoughts and whatnot. There's somebody who's orchestrating it. There's a puppet master, right? And he's pulling the strings.
Yes, and you know, sometimes I hate to get falsely liturgical about this, but it's the evil angel is the one that gets you, right? And I use the word
Oh
angel.
yeah, on the
The
shoulders.
devil comes and dressed as an angel, as the savior, and that it isn't. And so, you know, I just fear that we've got this very strange thing ongoing right now in which we've decided politically that we're going to vilify one another, that we're going to separate the humanity within us and cause us to detest things about others that are subject to being things that we all might have to be worried about ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's very well said, Sandy. 855 752 4842. It's an election day on the Earl Ingram Show. Again, our phone lines are open. You know, it's your thing. It's your thing. You can do what you want to do. We're going to talk about all the different things that are associated with the election. 855 752 4842. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show.
There's nowhere in the world that I would rather be than with you, my love.
And there's nothing in the world that I would rather see than your smile, my love.
For united we stand, divided we fall. And if our back should ever be against the wall, we'll be together.
Yeah, that's man. I haven't heard that in a long time. Beautiful song. Welcome back to the Earl Ingram song. Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. It's Tuesday. That means my co-host Sandy. Sandy, the music.
The music. Well, the music today is all about unification, unity, love. We've got this election. We've got to get it behind us. But I hope that our future can be shaped much more in the nature of a peaceful coexistence, non-suspicious, open, loving kind of recognition of all of our humanity. So that's the music.
Yeah, well, you may have to go to Mars in order to
Well,
to get that. Who was that, by the way? I forgot who that was.
It's a group called Men of Africa. I think. Yeah.
I remember that song, and it was always a beautiful, beautiful song. But anyway.
No, it's not. Brotherhood of Man.
Brotherhood of Man.
Yeah.
All right. Sandy, judges deny request to block DOJ from monitoring polls. Sandy, the Department of Justice monitoring elections. Let me read this paragraph, and then federal judges denied two states' requests to bar the Justice Department from dispatching lawyers to monitor adherence to federal voting rights and laws on Election Day. Both Missouri and Texas asked federal courts to keep the DOJ lawyers away from their polls. Missouri's Attorney General and Secretary of State said any monitoring would displace the state elections authorities, and Texas's Attorney General contended that Texas law alone determines who can monitor voting in Texas. Your thoughts?
Well, this is another situation where the bringing of the lawsuit is designed or maybe premised on the notion that the federal government has been politically weaponized, and that an organization like the Department of Justice, okay, which is which represents the tool that the United States federal government has for making sure that federal law is enforced, is somehow a biased organization that shouldn't be allowed to watch over the polls and make sure that polling laws are honored. It's again part of this process of dividing us up. And, I guess in my mind, I think I said it at the time when we talked about it a long time ago, when Mitt Romney said maybe Biden should have pardoned Trump. I at the time thought he should have, not because Trump wasn't guilty of whatever it was he was being charged with, but rather the fact that bringing the lawsuits allowed those who were championing Trump from a political standpoint to point at the lawsuits to argue that shows the weaponization of the government politically. And I don't think it is the weaponization of it, but it has allowed this kind of lawsuit to have some sort of potential legitimacy. And the fact is that I don't think the government was weaponized. I think that it was simply following the trail of evidence. But now we're at where we're at, and we do have callers who call in, and other people who I think many of the MAGA Republicans would tell you that their belief is that the federal government has been weaponized.
So let me ask you, Sandy, what perplexes me about all of this and has from the beginning? Just because somebody feels something's not right, do we have to respond as a government? The Department of Justice shouldn't be responding to somebody feeling like something's not right. How can it? I don't follow that. The power of the DOJ
Yeah.
should not be compromised to address somebody feeling like they've been disenfranchised.
Well,
Shouldn't there be facts?
Yeah, absolutely. But the problem with the source of our power in our government is the trust of the people. Okay, and so if when you destroy the people's trust in government, and if you do that uh, kind of in an organized fashion, like is ongoing now, you really lose the basic foundations of our government, and everything within the government is subject to being distrusted and attacked. So this lawsuit was brought by people who wanted to block the Department of Justice's capacity to oversee processes at the polling place, and the court said no. Actually, the Department of Justice is entitled to do that. But the fact is that the lawsuit was brought out of this suspicion, or maybe it brought to demonstrate the fact that there should be suspicion.
Well, Sandy, if the courts respond to a segment, because that's a segment of the population, that's not the overall population itself, how can they respond to segments of the population that impacts the entire population?
Well, like I said, our government is fragile. I can remember my father telling me that and me not believing it. And I don't know what his experience had been other than the fact that he'd lived a long time prior to my
Right.
life. But, the fragility of our government, and he lived through the Depression, and I suspect that felt like a very fragile
Right.
time with the government actually kind of teetering because everything was collapsing around everyone, and maybe they decided what good is government in this circumstance. But the fact is that it's the basis of our government is the trust of the people in the government processes and in the norms of government, so that all the elements of government don't have to be taken to court to test. And then if you're attacking not only the government but the courts, okay, now you're left with nothing, okay? And I would just remind the people that right now politically there's a whole group of people who want to, number one, attack the government, and number two, attack the courts, which leaves us with nothing.
855-752-4842. It's Election Day on the Earl Ingram Show. My co-host Sandy Williams is here as well. Your thoughts, we're looking for those right now.
time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying. Oh, when it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon make a change. We are a part of God's great big family. And the truth, you know, love is all we need.
You know, I remember when they put that together, it was to deal with the famine.
Well, it was USA for Africa.
Yes.
And it was what it was called. And yeah, it was to deal with, I think, famine issues in Africa. And maybe,
Yes.
and maybe South Africa as
yeah.
well. But yeah, you know, and there was so much good music that was written around this notion of unity that was easy to find.
Well,
some
that's a great choice. The first two are just great choices. 855-752-4842. It's you know, an election Tuesday, and Sandy Williams, my co-host, is here. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to CJ. And before we go to CJ, you know, Governor Evers has put the National Guard on alert.
Well, I think
You
that's
just-
been done in like 26 states.
Sandy,
Yeah.
we're talking about American elections,
Yeah.
that we have to come to that we've come to that.
Well, let's hope we haven't, and let's hope that this is all an abundance of caution that won't be needed. But I fear that the atmosphere, this crusade atmosphere we have, has put us into sort of a tinderbox, and that's not good.
All right, CJ, you're up.
Morning, gentlemen. My work with you, gentlemen, has almost come to a rest for a while.
Your work. It wa-
Yep, because I take it on as, I guess, who's the gentleman that used to say the rest of the story? Because you guys generally just tell part of the story. I love this call of unity, but when we've watched for 8 years the destruction of our most cherished institutions,
like what?
you know,
What's
we
that?
watched the dual purpose.
What's the most cherished
Well, our
institution?
FBI. Well, I'll
The
explain.
FBI is not our
Because,
most
like,
cherished institution. So,
Well,
That's
let,
one
you
of
know,
ours. They paid social media, they paid Facebook to keep things from us. We've watched the dual purpose of our justice system. The same thing, you know.
So let me just say,
same-
CJ, let me just, we were talking before you came on, maybe you were listening. So you're describing what you believe to be the weaponization of government, is that right?
Very much so.
Okay. All right. So, I think that's something we have to deal with, because there are a lot of people who apparently believe, as you do, that all this has occurred. And, I happen to think it's fallacious. I happen to think but I do think government has periodically and frequently made mistakes, okay? And it's made mistakes, whoever is at the helm. And I'm confident and certain that when Donald Trump was at the helm and was leaning on social media very hard, was bringing lawsuits against social media when they didn't kowtow to what he wanted them to be presenting or not presenting, that was a direct assault on amendment rights. But, the fact is we need to work our way through it.
Well, I watched Paul Ryan believe the Russian collusion crap. I watched you promote it with pencil neck shift. I watched the news media.
CJ. So here's why, it is so hard to deal with, people who can't have a conversation without talking about other people, and to call a man, names. You are a disciple of Donald Trump. That's not a good thing because Donald Trump is not brilliant enough to have a dialogue and a conversation and adult enough without calling people names. And you fall right along the lines with him.
The mere fact that you gentlemen still believe Adam Schiff, the way that he lied for 2.5 years.
Hey,
Well,
CJ.
well, actually, CJ, I think we should nip this one in
Yep.
the bud. But I mean, I think the problem is ascribing to other people what their thoughts are. You just told me that I believe Adam Schiff. We haven't even ever had a conversation that would suggest that I've thought about what Adam Schiff had to say or believe it. But I do think that evidence is evidence, okay? And Robert Mueller and the Mueller report and other things were filled with evidence. And you can all look at the evidence and look at it from different angles, like people do. But facts are facts, and there are plenty of facts that were underlying situations that resulted in the legal situations that have been overanalyzed in the public, and I'm sorry that the government didn't decide, and that the President Biden didn't decide to pardon Trump, even though that was something Donald Trump would never have done were the circumstances to be reversed. Donald Trump has talked about pursuing his enemies using all the apparatus of government. He talked and tried to initiate that process while he was in office, trying to get his Department of Justice to do things when there were individual guardrails, individuals within the Department of Justice who said, I'm sorry, hold on. So anyway, I just think that what we need to get past is all of this, and that's why the
Yes.
music is about unity.
It's election day.
Yeah.
And so we're not going back to some foolishness. The truth of the matter is, Donald Trump, you're talking about what they should have done, and yet Donald Trump is already convicted. The other thing is, I've got a text here. CJ, what do you see when you look in the mirror? The sky is not falling. Get out of the rain and look for the sun. So that's right. So, I mean, you can keep carrying this with you even after the election, but many of us are looking to move forward. And so if that means that, we don't have to talk with CJ again because you've decided to call a halt, then thank you for the time. We're moving on. Let's go to Jean from McClare. Good morning to you, Jean. You say what?
Good morning, guys. Today is a big day, and I'm praying, as I did previously 4 years ago when Donald Trump was in office. I watched live all the stuff that he caused, the lies, the deception, and only he could have the answers. I watched the people that sat around the table who praised him. Around the table, all of the people he put into office. Oh, you're the most wonderful guy. You're the best president in the United States of America. I watched him as he belittled anybody that disagreed with him, and most of the time he was not appropriate. I am hitting my head against the wall. Just kidding, no. I'm thinking to myself, what in the world would we pardon Donald Trump for? He does not believe that he makes any mistakes. He is above the law. We have laws in place, and we want our laws followed by whoever is in office. We do not pardon people for all of the hatred and all of the illegal actions, and there's still documents missing from Mar-a-Lago. We are the United States of America. We are better than this. We do not kowtow to liars and cheats and people that run others down and people who put women's lives at risk, taking away their rights to get health care. Women are dying. These people did it. We need to get out there and save women's lives and help our kids. What in the world kind of a United States of America are we setting up for these kids? Kids are depressed now. They see this stuff.
Hey, Jean, thank you very much for the call. Sandy, you want to respond to saying that she believes that there should be no pardon for Donald Trump?
Well, my notion of a pardon wasn't a forgiveness. It was simply a technical act taken by a president to, much the way Ford pardoned Nixon in the 70s with respect to the Watergate crimes. But it's neither here nor there. I'm hoping for unity going forward, and I guess based on the nature of what's been set on the table right now, we've got a ways to go before we can get there.
Yeah, I think there's no question. Let's go to Tom from LA. Good morning to you, Tom. You say what?
Yeah, first off, we the people ultimately are the government, and that means all of us. That means CJ, that means Dave, that means all of the callers. We're all in this together. So grow up and be an American. Look out for your neighbor. Do the things that Jesus Christ said in Matthew 15. Look at all of the other commandments that this guy has broken. Every commandment he has broken. So for you people out there that call yourself Christians, I'm going to call you the anti-Christians until you start acting like Christ acted. And also, get out and vote. Don't worry about what happens afterwards. You know what? There are more of us than there are of them. And I'm telling you right now, they need to start coming over to our side because we are actually holding out a hand of honesty and truthfulness. If they want to come to the table and be truthful and honest and come with good intentions, then great. We can all get along, no problem. But I do believe there's more of us than there is a small minority of them. We're going to find out today when this landslide happens, because that's going to happen today. And Sandy, Ford should have never, ever pardoned Nixon. That's where some of the sin comes from.
All right, Tom, thank you very much for the call. You want to respond to any of that, Sandy?
Well, I'm just against we, they, no matter from what direction it comes. And so I wouldn't stand behind all of what was said there. But and whether Ford should have pardoned Nixon or not, I lived through it. I don't know whether he did, but I think it was the right thing to do at the time. And I'm not sure. I don't want to I'm not going to rehash. It didn't happen, right? So, but I'm simply saying what I hope for is that we reestablish trust in government. We need to get there.
So the only way we can reestablish trust in government is to somehow get the person who's orchestrating the mistrust in government to just say, "Hey,
Well, we got
it's
to.
over."
I think we need to expose the angel for what for what they really are. Okay, it's like I was saying earlier, and because it is the devil in disguise, and we need to make sure that we don't move in the direction of sowing all of this kind of suspicion and the suspicion that destroys the foundations of government. Because when you destroy the foundations of our government, when you have the media in a state of collapse and courts, legislature, everyone else in disrepute, you've got nothing.
Sandy, this can also, based on the outcome of this election, split us up even further and make things even worse if things don't go according to the plans of somebody.
Well, I think we just need to all sit up and recognize what's going on and hopefully wake up.
And listen a little bit more to We Are the World.
Exactly.
All right, welcome back. Got to take a break. 855-752-4842. You can play that all day, every day. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show.
think about the generations and to say we want to make it a better place for our children and our children's children so that
Another
they know it's a better world
great song.
for them and think if they can make it a better place.
There's a place in your heart, and I know that it is love. And this place is much brighter than tomorrow. And if you really try, you'll find there's no need to cry. In this place, you feel there's no hurt or sorrow. There are ways to get there if you care enough for the living. Make a little space, make a better place, heal the world, make it a better place.
All right, welcome back to a election day, on the Earl Ingram Show. My co-host Sandy Williams is here, and we want to get right back to the phone lines. Let's go to Dave from San Francisco. Good morning to you, Dave. You say what?
Oh, morning, Earl. Sandy. Yeah, I'm glad you're heralding the We Are the World stuff, and especially today. If you remember back those days, there was a huge amount of bigotry from previous to that. And when he came up with that concert, and he was able to include just this wide variety of different artists that took part in it, that all of a sudden put Africa on the map as some place to cherish as opposed to just view them. The bigots always used to decry it and let them starve, So if a person is in starvation, they don't have the ability to think clearly. They don't have the ability to look out for their neighbors. They don't have the ability to, despair is the name of the game when you're in starvation. And the old boys love that because they can get the minerals cheap. They can get, they can loot nations, but through starvation. King Leopold taught us that. And so, Michael Jackson and the team that put that together really did an enormous amount of good for the world. And when you look at the way Trump is trying to take us back to the old days of bigots, that these old bigots, they're the ones that are right and you better toe the line, that's not America. And as a matter of fact, I was on a Texas show just an hour ago, and they're trying to whip the women into line by, don't you lie to your husband about who you voted for. You better vote for who I tell you to vote for. And when I challenged them on it, I said, free the MAGA slaves. Boy, they slammed down the phone on me.
David, thank you very much for the call. Let's go. Mike from Kenosha. Good morning to you, Mike. You say what?
Good morning, guys. It just strikes me odd that, we're in the United States and we don't tie unity with united. I say, the topic of the morning, unity, is a prerequisite to having a republic. And again, it's critical. It's everything. We should be trusting and relying upon one another. It's what makes up the spirit of the United States. But unfortunately, for the last 40, 45 years, the Republicans have put in people that don't believe it. There is such thing as good government. They put in shills for the moneyed interests that have committed to reducing and shrinking government down to nothing. Grover Norquist had literally hundreds of signatures, to keep austerity down, don't spend any money, continue reducing. I say again, unity is everything. It's a prerequisite. And with that, we can accomplish anything. Anything is possible when we're unified and we're all working together and we're striving for to improve our nation, improve our communities, and improve our households. When we work together, everything just seems to work out. It's when we dig in our heels and get all stubborn. That's when the divide and conquer comes in, and unfortunately, we've had way too much of that influence.
Hey, Mike, well said. Thank you very much for the call. Hang on the phone lines, 855-752-4842, and Election Tuesday. And my co-host Sandy Williams and you on the Earl Ingram Show.
everyone. And we learn to live. We learn to give each other.
All right,
what we
welcome
need
back
survive.
to Election Day coverage on the Earl Ingram Show. And Sandy, I'm just the lyrics of these songs. Golden.
Yeah, they're golden. This is McCartney and Stevie Wonder.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know,
I mean, all of them.
all of them are, you know, they might have been about other kinds of divides that we've had, but they're all about cultural, sociological divides and the need to overcome them. And so, you know, that's, to me, Election Day needs to be a hopeful day. So that's what this is all about.
All right, so you're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show. It's Election Day Tuesday with my co-host Sandy Williams, and we're taking your thoughts, whatever they may be, 855-752-4842. Let's go to Chad from Greenfield. Good morning to you, Chad. You say what?
All right, you guys. Well, first of all, before I begin, I want to say a big congratulations and thank you to the GOAT, the godfather of talk radio, Mr. Mark Belling. Without him, we wouldn't be talking right now. Earl, you wouldn't have a career on the radio. I think we all should be grateful for him.
So wait a minute. So what makes you think I wouldn't have a career on radio?
You started calling his show.
Yeah, that's it. That
gave you a voice, and I think it's pretty apparent. But that's okay.
Well, it wasn't just
Anyway,
him. He wasn't the only show I called, just for the sake of clarity.
Yeah, but he's the biggest show in Wisconsin.
Okay. All right. So okay. Go.
Either way,
That.
I
Go
think we
ahead.
should be thankful and be grateful. But second of all, you know, I'm listening to this. You guys for the past hour, you guys sound dead. You guys sound defeated. I think you guys know what's about to come. What happened to the party of joy? You guys sound deflated. I think deep down, you know, the internals are looking bad. The gambling lines went up again 20% this morning. Your firewall is burned in Pennsylvania and other states.
Whoa, let me cut you off. Let's not count our chickens before they hatch. Okay, you know, if you're a gambling man, you've just cursed yourself. So I wouldn't declare victory. You know, quite so early. You know, the strategy might be to declare victory early and then ask people to prove why you didn't win. But we're not going to have it on this radio show.
Well, because I don't think we said anything about that Kamala Harris is going to lose. Where did you get that?
Well, I think I don't think he was looking for I think that there needed to be no opening. I think this was a call with a purpose. But
Chad, we never said. I'm confident that the American people aren't going to make the same mistake they made before in putting a man who is clearly not well into that position again. Okay, so I'm more than confident that that's going to be the outcome.
You guys sound depressed and sad. I think you know what's coming, a party of joy. I just don't feel it. But I just want to know what your excuse is going to be tomorrow. Is it going to be racism, misogyny?
Well, let me ask you,
Stop.
What is yours going to be?
No, I mean, you talk about the party of excuse. We have a party that lost 4 years ago who still claims that the election was rigged, you know, that they didn't lose, the excuse is that the election process itself is somehow defective when the victory bell isn't rung on the right side. So, you know, it's enough of this call. This is silliness. Silliness.
Let's go to Susan from Kenosha. Good morning to you, Susan. You say what?
Good morning. I got up early this morning and I was at the polling place at 7 o'clock. I was so overjoyed. I can't even tell you how many cars are in the parking lot. And also, I have to tell you, all the young people that I stood in line with, it took about a half hour to vote this morning. And, but I was overjoyed to see this, to see such a turnout. And no matter what happens, we will still march on. We will still work toward a better tomorrow. And one of the things that early this morning when I got up and I was looking at my phone, I didn't know that Dick Van Dyke was so involved in 1964. He stood on the platform with Martin Luther King at one of Martin Luther King's speeches. And I was astonished and he got up this morning and he read a speech that actually Rod Sterling wrote. And just this one portion of this speech, I would just like to read for the people. There will be moments of violence and expressions of hatred as ugly echo of intolerance proceeds. But these are the clinging vestiges of a decay of the past, not the future, not the bearer of a better and clean future. And that's exactly what's happening. That is exactly what's happening. And Rod Sterling wrote that. He was the writer of The Twilight Zone. So I, in myself, was just that reading this and seeing what I saw at the polling place, I am elated. I am happy. People are getting involved. And united we stand. For divided we shall fall. And I think this particular race has united the people. And that's all I have.
Hey, Catherine, you said a lot. I mean, you invoke Rod Serling, so.
And sometimes I have felt like we've been in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Let's go to Brendan from New Jersey. Hey, good morning to you, Brendan. You say what?
I'm so happy that earlier clown gave us a preview of what we're going to get at 11 p.m. this evening when the other clown with the orange face comes out and tries to tell everybody they've already won the election, because that's going to happen. But, you know, CJ is the perfect example of what's going on in that party right now, making lame excuses about how they've been cheated already. Hey, it's a great day. I feel positive. I feel there's a real movement in the country towards people wanting to save our Constitution and our democracy, and not vote this criminal into office. And even his rallies have just gone down to nothing. I thought if you watched Kamala's rally last night in Philadelphia, it was incredibly produced. They were in multiple cities, jumping from one city to the next. I feel there's a lot of energy behind what's going on. I've moved, so I have to drive about 30 to 45 minutes to go vote. I'm going to wait for my daughter to get off work, and we're all going to go vote as a family. So keep the positive thoughts, and let's move forward.
Hey, Brendan, thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Melissa from Kenosha. Thank you very much for the call. You say what?
Good morning. I just wanted to say I'm really enjoying your show.
Thank you.
Today and every day, but especially today, it's, giving me the calm and hope that I needed today.
Hey, Melissa, thank you very much for listening. And tell somebody about us. We really appreciate it. And I felt your spirit. Let's go to Brian from McGuanago. Good morning to you, Brian. You say what?
Well, right off the bat, now I'd like to say that, hey, Melissa, we're all in this together. So keep your head up, and we'll get through it no matter what outcomes say. But I'm positive that Kamala is going to win, and we're going to have a brighter future. But I want to mention something about the goofball caller a few callers ago, and something about CJ the other day, and yesterday, actually. And they were talking, some of the other callers were talking about, like, can we just ban CJ because of the ridiculousness? And I want to say, in regards to that, in regards to this goofball that just called a few minutes ago, I don't think we should ban any caller. I think we need everyone to call in, whether or not we think their ideas are ridiculous or we disagree with them. We need them calling in. Otherwise, we create our own echo chamber. And that, as we can all see, is a slippery slope. And I just wanted to throw that out.
Hey, Brian, let me also add this. And what I love about what you just said, more than all the other great things you said, what I loved the most was you said we. And, Sandy and I, that's what we attempt to do every day, is include everybody. And I love the fact that you said we.
Yeah, and I think the echo chamber is the important concept. I think what we need to avoid are echo chambers. We don't need amen corners. We need listening processes, and we need colloquy and dialogue.
All right. Let's go to Joe from Milwaukee. Good morning to you, Joe. You say what?
Well, just listening to some of the calls, I'm a conservative and I do like to listen to opposing opinions. And, when you call people goofballs, is that really listening? Is that really inclusive? I find it strangely ironic that, you have that kind of verge that's tossed at people with a different perspective. And I'm disappointed in that. I don't need to call you a name just because you don't agree with
Hey,
my
Joe, I agree with you.
We
but
didn't
do you know,
we didn't use that term actually.
Do you say that, Joe, when you listen to conservative talk radio and it's constantly, attacking and beating up people? I listen to conservative talk radio every day, sir, and have for the better part of 30 years, 40 years almost.
I do, but when you have the current president calling 250 million people garbage, I guess it seems pretty disingenuous.
So hang on a second, Calvin. You want to respond to this gentleman? We'll give you an opportunity to respond to him.
Well, I just like 250 million that can't be the number. There's only 330 million people in the country.
Well, and the other thing is that whether that Joe Biden, it's not clear what he said when he used the term garbage. Whether he was referring to the words that were being used as garbage, or whether it was pointed at people. But the White House tried to clarify that later, and back off from that. But I think you've got a candidate. I think this would be calling the kettle the wrong color, because you've got a candidate who spends all of his time describing his opposition with very negative terms. I don't know whether Marxist or communist or devil. I don't know what these things are, but they're not positive.
All right. 855-752-4842. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show. All right. Welcome back to an election day edition of the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. My co-host Sandy Williams is here. And Sandy, I will say this. I am so pleased about our listening audience and the growth of it and the diversity of it and the intellect of our audience. It's grown.
Well, and I am glad that we have all different views, and I don't mean to cut off people who necessarily, but one thing I think what we're not looking for is people who call only with the purpose of spouting talking points. What we're interested in is conversation and about issues. When we get past this election, I think we're going to find out we're going to have shows that'll be dealing with substantive things, and hopefully we can move on in the direction of having lots of diverse views expressed on the subjects we're talking about.
No, absolutely, 100% accurate. Let's go to the phone lines. And Charles from Milwaukee. Good morning to you, Charles. You say what, man?
Hey, good morning, guys. Great conversation this morning. Yes, as a country, we need to come together. There's so much division in our country, but I think it's ironic that Trump supporters, almost like they have amnesia. Maggie Dawn the other day played it was about a 45-second clip of all the times that Donald Trump has called Democratic constituents trash, scum,
yes,
Marxist, communist. Yes. And it's almost like they forget that. Just last night, he referred to her as the B word. J.D. Vance called her trash. Not once have I heard Kamala Harris say anything derogatory about Trump, Vance, or the Republican constituents. But they made sure to talk about her, and the two campaigns there's a stark difference. Donald Trump's whole campaign has been just dark. I mean, completely dark. And her campaign has been all about hope and happiness and bringing people together. And it's almost like they have amnesia and they forget all the horrible things. I don't think there's a day that goes by that Donald Trump does not say something about somebody. Pencil neck Schiff. He was talking about Adam Schiff last night.
I know.
I mean, that's your closing argument, is to talk about people. One of the things, I worked in MPS for 18 years before I had my transplant. I worked with kids at a group home. We taught kids. You don't bully other kids. And we have grown folks at his rallies that laugh, thinking it's funny. And if their kid came home and said that they were being bullied, they would go up to school and they would be really mad that their kid was being bullied, but they laugh at someone that wants to be the most powerful, hold the most powerful office in the world, and they laugh at things that he says about people. What does that say about us as people, that we laugh at somebody that makes fun of other people?
Hey, Charles, man, right on point as always. I mean, very well said. Sandy, another text message. What are we all supposed to be, 6 years old again? Because there's a hell of a lot of people that are acting like toddlers. I want my way. I don't want anything to change. Just don't feel comfortable. You know, there's going to be a winner and a loser. There always is in competition, right?
Yeah.
And so we've learned. I know I ran a sports league for 20 years, and I struggled constantly to tell people there's winners and losers in competition. That's at the root of competition, right?
Ultimately, teams have to exceed to the outcome, right? I remember there was a Seattle Seahawks game with a very controversial play at the end of it, which would have made the game go the other direction. And when you looked at it afterwards, the call should have gone the other direction. But the Seahawks couldn't claim victory in a game that you lost, right? So, that's been what we need is this peaceful acquiescence to the outcome of something that might be very close. And our elections have for quite a while been very close, but somebody has to win. And if the election is forever contested and never accepted, ultimately our system falls apart.
Is it unrealistic for us to expect adults to act like adults? I mean, at the root of what we're talking about here is what I just read in this text message. We should expect adults to act like adults. I mean, I tell children all the time, things aren't going to always go your way. That's part of the lessons we teach children, right?
Yeah, there seems to be some sort of regression in terms of civil norms, and particularly one of the civil norms that might be regressing is the definition of adulthood and the civility and the norms that are associated with operating and acting like an adult. Because we have a person on stage who constantly is testing that norm, I'll tell you. Yes.
Well, that's 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Sandy, I want to explore what we just got through talking about a little deeper. Phone lines are open, you guys. Your thoughts on the outcome, and what you saw today. I'm a guy who votes the day of, so I'll be leaving here and going to my voting place, and I can generally judge the outcome by the numbers when I get there. All right, 855-752-4842.
is but a song we sing. Feels the way we die. You can make the mountains ring, or make the angels cry. Those are birdies on the wing, and you may not.
All right, welcome back to, the election edition of the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. Your thoughts, we're going to keep it going to the end of the show. And, on today's election, let's go to Gary from Sussex. Good morning, Gary. You say what?
Well, I voted early about a week ago or so. First time in my life I've ever done that. There weren't a lot of people out in Sussex at that time. It was during the daytime. I had a day off. But I do want to say something that I've been listening. I was watching MSNBC this weekend, and they were talking about Trump wanting to put Liz Cheney in front of a firing squad. And if he said that, I wouldn't vote for him.
Gary, hang on. Because you always say, if he said that. You didn't hear him say that. Every time Trump says something outrageous, you say you didn't hear him say that. Even though it's out there for you to find, very easy to find. He said it.
Actually, Gary, you talked about this yesterday when you called in. And, what he said or whether he said that, Bill Maher or others have tried to figure out what it was he was trying to say. But he did talk about having 9 guns trained on her face.
It was unnecessary.
And it was just the notion of talking about it in those violent terms. But in any case, we're at Election Day, and a huge portion of the people we're talking to have probably already voted, and another portion of them are headed out to vote. But can we avoid going through all that laundry? We did it yesterday, actually, with you, Gary, so I'm not quite sure why you wanted to bring it up again today.
No, you hung up on me, Sandy. I just want to know, did he say that, or was
well,
he
Gary?
referring
Well,
to
here,
on the clip, what he said was that he was talking about her and talking about her being someone who always wanted to go to war, and that Liz Cheney was a warmonger, that she would come to his office regularly when he was in presidency, wanting to go to war. I'm sure that was apocryphal. And secondly, that how would she behave if she had a gun in her hand and had 9 rifles focused on her face? Okay. And so it's not clear what he was trying to say, but using the notion of 9 rifles trained on her face was a strange description of what a firing squad does. And it was a totally unnecessary way of talking about it. And I think yesterday what I responded to was that my problem with Donald Trump is that he's talking in terms of violence all of the time. He talks about going backstage and knocking the hell out of people. He talks about a lot of things, and it just strikes me as unnecessary violent talk.
Especially for a man who wants to be the president of the United States.
Yeah, but Sandy and Earl, he was making a point.
Hey, Gary, you're making excuses.
This is
enough of the excuses for what Donald Trump is saying.
This is replowing the ground from yesterday, and whatever your version is of what it was he was trying to do, it was all a lot of unnecessary talk about violence, and with talking about 9 rifles focused and aimed at her face was just something that no president should be talking about with respect to a political opponent. But in any case, today's Election Day, and we're done with this.
When that's what I say, and then tomorrow or the next day or whatever, we figure out we all get along, because Earl, you and I and Sandy, we've all been getting along for 8 years now. And the fact is, we have to do this.
Hey, Gary, thank you very much for the call.
Oh, that's true. I mean, I think that's the point. In the future, we need to figure out a way to get along. But hopefully, whoever's in office will not continue to sow the seeds of division.
Let's go to Rob from West Dallas. Good morning to you, Rob. You say what?
Morning, gentlemen. Just as people go into that voting booth, I want them to remember integrity, right? So I watch these ads, and they say Trump won't do an abortion ban. Yeah, he won't do it at the federal level. They're just going to pass 50 state ones, or this horrible ad they run against Tammy Baldwin, where they act like she sat down with the Boston bomber and gave him a COVID check. I mean, it's so smacks of a lack of integrity. And then, I wish it would be over. Like after the election, I feel really good that I think that Kamala is going to win. But they're already planting the seeds for election fraud. So I don't know if you guys saw Ron Johnson. What a freaking disappointment. He was on either Fox or Fox Business claiming election fraud to Neil Cavuto. And when Neil pushed him on it, he had nothing. So, I mean, you need to think about that. 40 years of supply side Reaganomics hasn't been working for the middle class. And these people are complete liars. They don't have any integrity. How can you vote for them? Republicans are fine, but some of these politicians are really slimy with their half truths.
Robert, it is absolutely true that Ron Johnson, who we had on a couple of weeks ago.
Well, and in fact, he had already started the process. So when asked the question of, would he honor the outcome of the election, he jumped the track. He jumped the shark, is what he jumped, and went off already talking about all the ways that the prior election had been stolen, setting the table for claiming the same thing this time around, I guess.
Well, and that's why, Robert, as you stated, it's going to be hard for there to be peace, not because, again, I think there's no question that if Donald Trump wins the election, you're not going to see mass numbers of Democrats saying the election was stolen. I think there will be, not very many, if any, who will be saying that, Robert. But if the shoe's on the other foot, nonstop, we're going to continue to hear that the election was stolen, not just by politicians, but by average, everyday citizens who have been fed this garbage.
Yeah, I mean, the notion that 2016, the Democrats after 2016 talked about the social media kinds of things that might have affected how people voted, but they weren't asserting that the election had been improperly stolen or the votes improperly counted or that the president, in fact, wasn't the president. There was a discussion about then the effect of potential social media disinformation, and we continue to face that, and we face it now with our eyes open and understanding that there are meddlesome people out there with ill intent trying to use social media.
All right, let's go to Rocky from Madison. Good morning to you, Rocky. Thank you very much for calling. You say what, sir?
Good morning. Everybody should cheer up. It's time to be winners. Celebrate. Have a cigar. Because I've got ESPN. ESP is extrasensory perception, and then it's not always. But I'll tell you something. Simple math tells me 160 million people vote last time. 80 million were women. 80 million men. We get 80 million women vote for the right person, and half the men, that's 120. We win 120 to 40. Trump proves it. He's a loser. So let's get a cigar and celebrate, guys. It's that time.
Hey, Rocky, I wish we could be so sure. Thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Justin from McGuanago. Good morning to you.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
All right. You say what?
I say that I see a lot of interesting things around me. I see a lot of energy in a lot of different directions. I see a lot of energy going to Trump in this area, and especially in Waukesha as well. Now, I'm a younger person. I spend my time with a lot of younger people. You'd be shocked at the amount of younger people that want to vote and are going to vote Trump today. And especially early. Like, the amount of people in my life that are voting early right now is just very surprising compared to the last 8 years.
Well, so I would say to you, hang on, that, what you see in Waukesha and other places, that's in that area. But I can tell you in the city of Milwaukee, the largest city in the entire state, I see the exact opposite for the most part. So, it's, that energy that you're seeing is good, but that energy is being duplicated all over this nation, Sandy, in different places.
Well, I think there is a notion that Trump might excite people who are infrequent voters who are anti-establishment. My view is the more voters we have, the better, and regardless of how they vote, it's part of the democratic process. And if we can activate everybody, and if we can avoid suppressing anybody, then I think the outcome will be what it will be, and we will have a government that is premised on the vote of the people. And so, I applaud big votes and big votes from any segment, but I wouldn't be lighting any cigars yet on any side. And I think what we need to have is a big vote and a big with a big vote. And I think we should understand that there is a party that doesn't appreciate big votes, okay? And there's a party that has tried to make it hard to vote with a very significant purpose in mind. And so, in the long run, I think what you're talking about is great. And in the short run, it's great. But I think you should recognize that big votes and big turnouts are what everyone should want, but everyone doesn't want that.
I think, Justin, it's great to have a young man like you listening to the show, number one, and also being engaged with younger people. So we appreciate that.
Of course, and I appreciate your show.
Well,
and
thank
I gotta
you.
say, too,
Go ahead.
I happen to be on the other side of the fence, but I agree. The more voting, better. And I love the fact that people are taking more advantage of early voting because I want to hear what people have to say. I think the more the people get engaged in this process, the better off everybody is. And no matter what side you're on, I'm just so glad that I just really want people to have dynamic, rich conversations to really discuss what's going on so we can just help each other out because at the end of the day, we just want to take care of each other, and we really don't want these kind of things to divide us.
Hey, man,
Here,
you're
here.
very,
Absolutely.
very encouraging, and thank you very much, man. Very well said. Let's go to Jake from Milwaukee. Good morning to you, Jake. You say what?
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Oh, yeah.
I just have a genuine question for you guys. So let's say Harris wins, and Trump does all his ranting and raving, early declaration, and saying fraud and all that stuff. What can he actually do in terms, what's the worst case scenario of him interfering, delaying any of that? Can he actually do anything other than just rile up his cult following?
Well, there's been an effort on the part of the Republican Party to install into the voting apparatus in a whole variety of states a far more partisan process. And there is this theory of the legislative, the sole power of the legislature to do and control voting. And there are extreme right-wing folks who would want the legislature in a state where the people might vote Democrat to decide that the Electoral College votes will be selected by the state legislature and therefore might send Republican votes to the Electoral College, even though the Democrats won the state in a plurality. And so, there's all these legal theories at play that are going to be tested, apparently. And it's all part of this process of testing the norms and contesting the norms. And so can there be mischief? I fear there can be. And there needn't be mischief in many states if we have a very tight Electoral College vote for it to be a problem in the long run.
Hey, Jake, thank you very much for the call. 855-752-4842 as we wind down an election day show on the Earl Ingram Show. Phone lines are still open.
You will understand. Listen. You hold the key to love and fear, all in your trembling hand. Just one key unlocks them both. It's there at your
No, Sunday, I got to tell you, music's been exemplary.
Today's been good music, I have to say. Turns out there's a big assortment of positive stuff.
All right. Welcome back to what are the last few minutes of an election day morning on the Earl Ingram Show. So I haven't voted yet. I'm the kind of guy who always waits until election day, and
You wait, you probably kept your kids waiting to go down and see if Santa Claus had been there. It's all part of the ritual,
yeah,
right?
that's the way it used to be.
Yeah.
Couldn't open the gifts until the next morning.
Right.
And not during I've seen people allow them to open them during the evening, Christmas Eve, but no, I'm a stickler for. You talking to the guy who watches movies from the 40s and the 50s, so
Ritual.
Yeah.
So you got so your ritual in about an hour, you'll be casting your vote.
Yeah, traditionalist, and so I will be voting, and I'm looking forward to seeing, the people on election day, and we've had.
I voted early on the 29th. I stood in line to do that. So this is going to be a very big turnout day.
We've had a great group of callers. I always say that the success of this program is because of you, the listeners. And so Sandy and I are very appreciative of the fact that you guys, get up and call us.
I think it was Justin from McConaughey. I was really happy, as apparently a conservative leaning young man what he was interested in is, one, a big turnout, and two, a dialogue between folks, and I think he was listening to the show because maybe that's what we try to offer. So that's good.
Well, tomorrow will be a continuation of you and your thoughts, because as Sandy stated, Sandy, you don't think the outcomes. I'll tell you one thing that's going to happen for sure. Tonight, Donald Trump is going to declare victory.
Yeah, I'm sure he's already made it clear that's what's going to happen. I think tomorrow we will have a far better view of what happened in the House and the Senate, which obviously ends up being very important. Most frequently, the president wins and wins the Troika and wins the House and the Senate, and for 2 years is in a position to actually accomplish policy that might be aimed in the direction of what the party is that's in control. But I'm thinking this time that's maybe not as likely, and so we'll find out.
The House, the Senate, all of them are razor thin, and this nation is divided right down the middle.
It is, and it's not clear. I think we're going to find out in the long term whether the division is actually as strong as it might feel in terms of the view of the majority of the people, because there is a growing, I think, center which is interested in potentially accomplishing things. And we've had for a long time gridlock, particularly in every circumstance in which there hasn't been the Troika in effect, and we've had a divided House and White House. We've had gridlock, and we've had little or nothing accomplished. And Biden began to accomplish things bipartisanly, and maybe we're headed in the direction of having what used to be called the quiet majority, silent majority. Maybe, in fact, they'll start rearing their head.
Sandy, I just wish that there was a way we could put the genie back in the bottle, and these commercials that are so misleading, so hurtful.
Yeah.
Just totally untrue. And they know that they're lying, and yet they put it out there anyway. And then we have a news media that by law can't not show it. There's this one, again, that shows an aborted fetus, baby, kind of. And it looks so horrible. And it's such a horrible, horrible commercial that they say after it in white letters on a black background, by law, we're forced to show this.
Well,
but we don't support this.
Yeah, my hope is we can drop the notion that political campaigns are crusades, but where we're blood sport, where we're actually pitted against one another because there is an enemy within, all of this kind of thing. Hopefully we can somehow get it behind us. I think it's more likely to get behind us depending on the outcome here, but hopefully we can get it behind us regardless of the outcome.
And you would hopefully say that all that negative ads, all those negative ads, that once somebody lost, they could be and say, well, congratulations to my opponent. I used to tell, when I was running my league, after the games, everybody had to shake hands. The kids had to shake hands.
Yeah.
Whether they liked it or not. That's what we should do.
Well, anyone who watches an NFL game notices that at the end of the game, there's a lot of love expressed between the participants who were hard at it during the game, and hopefully we can have that same kind of unity after this. And we have to be dedicated to that principle, though, and people are going to have to unsee and unthink some of the things that they've seen and thought during the campaign in order to get there.
Well, thank everybody. Sandy, thank you especially. I'll see you again on tomorrow. Thank everybody who made the show go. Up next, Jane Madnair and Greg Bach, Madnair on air. Get out and vote. I know I got to do my due diligence. See you guys on tomorrow.